You're listening to the Packernet Podcast Network.
You ever hear of test driving a phone network? Well, US Cellular is letting you test drive their nationwide 5G for free. Try out US Cellular wherever you have spotty service, your commute to work, that one spot in your house where your service dips. It's as easy as doing a little beep boop pop boop pop with your phone. That's the buttons, that's the noise they make. Anyways, test drive US Cellular's nationwide 5G coverage for free for 30 days. Just download the Try Us app. US Cellular, built for us. Terms apply. Visit uscellular.com/try us.
You're a podcast listener, and this is a podcast ad. Reach great listeners like yourself with podcast advertising from Lips and Ads. Choose from hundreds of top podcasts offering host endorsements, or run a reproduced ad like this one across thousands of shows to reach your target audience with Lips and Ads. Go to lipsandads.com now. That's LIBSYN ads.com.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on Packernet.com. You can find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us, PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. I apologize for being so unprofessional, but man, these pregame conversations. With the week I've had, boys, I needed that. I needed that laugh right there. Jacob, how you doing, man?
Doing great, Clayton.
I believe
as you know.
Love to hear it.
Emilio, how are you, sir?
I'm good. Gallon and a half of water and 2 Propels, 2 for $3 at the gas station. Screaming deal. Still feel dehydrated.
Yeah, it was bad, bro. It was showing 101 heat index here, and you got the whole pounding in the chest. A couple of times. It's like, all right, yeah, let's just slow down a bit.
Yes, so, the head's throbbing. The head's got its own heartbeat. You're like, all right, we need to get.
It's just another reason, man. Let's get fall here as quick as possible, right? Get here, get that cooler weather coming down the pike. When it's getting down to, in the daytime about 68 degrees. Got some leaves falling, that type of thing. And when those leaves do start to fall, it's football season. And when it's football season, so Jacob, what we're going to do here tonight, man. The last episode that we did, and I apologize for no show last night. We were going to try to pull it off. Emilio was actually in town. He came up for the funeral, and I appreciate that, Emilio. It was good just to be out with you and Jordan and get to laugh a little bit. It was a lot of fun. So we were going to try to do a show last night, and we were texting back and forth. It's like, you know what, man, let's just take the night off. I was emotionally exhausted, which you could probably tell, bro. I was a wreck. But appreciate you coming up, Jacob. Emilio got to meet Pops.
Ooh. That dog himself, man. I thought it was, dude. I saw him. I saw the leather vest. I knew it. It was game time.
You knew who it was. You said, yeah, that's
immediately.
Yeah, that's big Clayton. Right there,
I turned to Jordan. I said, it's game time.
He said, get your game face. So what we did on that last episode, Jacob, was we started to dive into a really, really well written article on Robert Saleh's defense. Now, this article was written going into last year's training camp, so it talks a lot about the 2022 Jets defense, which we all know 2023 they came out just as strong, really, maybe even stronger. So we're going to dive into that. Before we do, is there anything you would want to hit on, anything you'd like us to talk about before we dive back into that article? I didn't want to – if there was something on your mind or something you might have uncovered lately.
No, to be honest, I've just been kind of – working like crazy, so I've been trying to. I didn't even get to listen to you guys this episode that I missed here, but this is kind of cool from Jeff. He says, "I'm so happy that I get to finally make an episode. My dad and I are going to listen while we make dinner." It's nice.
Hey, what's up, Jeff? Good stuff, Jeff. Jeff Silky in the house. Appreciate you, buddy. Tell Pops we said hello, man. That's a good time there, man, for sure. It ain't nothing like food and family, no doubt about that. But all right, let's do it, man. Let's just jump right back into this article then. Actually, Jacob, you sent this over the other day. Let's hit this real quick. I thought this was really cool. You sent this to me, right, Jacob? Am I thinking right?
I screenshot you a whole bunch of stuff, yeah.
So this right here is a really neat screen grab. So it talks about, and this was from UK Packers on Twitter, a great follow, by the way. It says how much each NFL team has sold for. And obviously you can click on the tweet and get a little more information, but they have the screen graphic ready here. And basically it talks about what each NFL franchise has sold for. And it starts in 2023 with the Washington Commanders. And I don't know whether to go forward or backward here. I guess we'll kind of start backwards and skip a few generations here. But the Green Bay Packers are the only team that's obviously not listed with a sale price. Now, we all know that they had to pay, I think there was reports of $100 to $150 to get back in the National Football League when they relaunched as the National Football League, because Curly, being the great Curly Lambeau, has been in the rules every way he could, right? So the first team that actually was sold was the Chicago Bears, and they may have been called something else at the time. I don't think they were. They sold for $100 in 1920. That's just wild, man. Absolutely wild. Now
that's a Jacob deal right there. Jacob would buy the Bears for $100.
No doubt about it. And then you fast forward 5 years, and you can see how the franchises are already gaining value. The Giants sold for $500. And then in 1933, eight years later, the Steelers sell for $2,500. 1960, is that what that is? No, I can't tell what that is. Is that 19? I think it's 1960. The Chiefs sold for $25,000. The Titans sold for $25,000 in 1959. Mm-hmm. So it's going by overall value as opposed to the year. So in 1932, the Cardinals sold for $50,000. In 1966, the Raiders were purchased, probably by Al Davis, I'm sure, for $180,000. And I mean, it's just wild. From that point there, you go to 1964. You actually go back a few years before, so it's kind of confusing how it's laid out. 2 years prior to the Raiders selling for $180,000, the Detroit Lions sold for $5 million.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and it just shows you how more value is placed on, because the NFL, obviously this was before the merger too, right? Yeah, so 64 was before the merger, so this was still AFL, NFL. So what you're seeing is some of these teams are AFL, probably not getting quite as much money as the NFL teams. So pretty cool, man. But we're going to kind of fast forward, jump ahead to, let's say 2002, because you get to a point where every year it goes up, right? For the most part. Now, there was a little bit of staggering here. Let's go 2002, Atlanta Falcons, $545 million. And then it was 2 years prior to that, in 2000, the Baltimore Ravens sold for $600 million. In 2005, the Vikings sold for $600 million. Obviously, that was Ziggy Wolf that came in, or Wilf, however you say his name, came in and bought the team. The Jets sold in 2000 for $635 million. In 1999, the Houston Texans, I guess that would have been their inaugural year, right?
Yeah.
So $700 million. In 2010, the LA Rams, which at the time were the St. Louis Rams, right, sold for $750 million. 2011, the Jaguars sold to Mr. Khan down there, for $760 million. The Cleveland Browns, as bad as that team's been, in 2012, they sold for $1.05 billion.
Wow.
Wild. Dolphins at $1.1 billion in 2008. The Buffalo Bills for $1.4 billion in 2014. And this is where you kind of see it just goes straight up, man. Dolphins in 2008, $1.1 billion. Bills in 2014, $1.4 billion. In 2018, the Carolina Panthers were bought by David Tepper for $2.28 billion. In 2022, the Walton family, they owns Walmart, bought the Broncos for $4.65 billion. And then, of course, in 2023, the Washington Commanders were sold for $6.05 billion. Man, I'm telling you, you look at the last 10 years, the value of franchises, the NFL is as strong as it's ever been. Jacob, what caught your eye on this, man, when you sent it over, dude? It's pretty wild.
I mean, it's just kind of cool. If I could hop in a time machine, what I'd do is I'd run back to 1920 with 100 spot. I'd buy the Bears and I'd burn it to the ground and pee on the ashes. No, I mean, it is just crazy how you said to see the progression. And obviously you talk about storied franchises, and it was just something like just a really, really cool when you look down there. NA ain't never been sold. Hopefully never will get sold. 1919. I mean, it's just everything about it is just iconic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I'm trying to think here. Can you guys see the date on the Chargers there for me? Because I'm going to tell a story. If that says 84,
84.
1984.
Yeah. So cool story. If you watch a Football Life, Jerry Jones, he wanted to purchase the Chargers at that time, and his dad talked him out of it. He basically said, Dad, football. He said, you ain't got time to be messing around with football. He said, football is my passion. He said, you're too young to have a passion. That's what he said to him. So he went back to the oil fields or whatever. And then it was several years later, the Cowboys, you see, in 1989, they came up for sale. And he tells a story in A Football Life about how he was on a boat. I think he was on a boat. He was definitely on a vacation in Cabo, Mexico. And he said that he seen in a newspaper clipping that the Dallas Cowboys were up for sale. And he said, I'd have one too many of those famous margaritas down there in Cabo. And he said, I called up the owner of the Cowboys and I said, listen, if I survive this hangover, I'm buying your team from you when I get back into the country, is what he said. And sure enough, he did. He came back, bought the Cowboys, rest is history. Whether you like Jerry Jones or not, you can't deny that man is – I mean, he bought him for $140 million in 1989, and he tells the story in A Football Life how they were losing $1 million per month. That's how bad the franchise was. And he turned that thing completely around. Now I think it's the most valued franchise in the entire NFL. So it's pretty wild. We still hate them, though, right, guys?
Yeah.
We still hate the Cowboys, right?
I mean,
yeah. It's my dad's team, so I gotta.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Well, we can't hate them if it's your
Yeah,
dad.
I mean, the house has been divided since I was a kid, so it's all right.
Gotcha. I love it, man. Love it. So I appreciate you sending that over, Jake. I thought that was really cool, man. I love looking anything that merges business with football, bro. I'm all about it. I am all about it. So pretty cool little, like I said, snippet.
I just thought of one thing real quick before we move on. Did you guys get a chance to look at the link I sent you of the Jordan Love kind of documentary? It's really long. It's like an hour and a half long.
No, I haven't watched it yet.
Nope, I haven't.
I can't remember. Oh boy, it's from somebody like Nate. It's like Nate Dogg. The credentials are in the video all over. He's got a watermark on it. But what he does is basically splices together all the media talking. And then periodically, as we're talking, I mean, when they got drafted into the second season, when he finally gets to his first start, when he gets the start against KC, the start against Philly, when Rodgers gets traded. And a lot of it's Colin Cowherd, and a lot of it's just clips. And then they go into each week and they show his progression. And I mean, we did it ourselves when we went through the week, the different weeks. And we haven't, did we finish that yet, Clayton?
What was it now?
Doing the game reviews.
No, we have not. No, we need to wrap it up.
Yeah, I watched for an hour and a half this morning, and I was just kind of amazed at the actual progression that Love made throughout the year. I mean, I forgot how bad we looked right away and how much the cards were stacked against us. I mean, it was kind of crazy. And to watch him actually turn into arguably one of the top 3 quarterbacks in the league over that span was just like incredible. So
yeah, no, I agree.
I'll try to send it to you guys. I'll post it on my Twitter if anyone wants to take a peek at it.
Sweet. There you go. Yeah, that's why I love doing that. And it's been a tradition of mine for quite some time, is like when we get into the dog days of the off season, I love to go back. All right, let me just go back and watch last season real quick and just get a quick refresher. And it does, because when you go watch the first half of last season, you understand why Goody is hesitating on this contract with Love. I don't know if hesitating might be a little strong. But where he's just not like, okay, let's just make him the highest paid quarterback. Let's throw the book at him, right? Because that first half was pretty bad, wasn't it? Like it was rough. And then you get to the second half, and it's like this dude played better than Rodgers. In the second half of the season, he played better than Rodgers. I would argue, I think there's a point to be argued that Jordan Love in the last 9 games of the season last year, or the last 9 games of last season, that he played better than Rodgers in MVP years. And I mean, that's it. And you guys know I'm a Rodgers fan. I love Rodgers. I don't allow the vaccination status to bother me personally. I could care less what somebody wants to do. But it just
that was a Nate shot. That's the one, actually. Yep.
Bang.
So when you see how bad he played in the first half, it's like, okay, yeah, I get why Goody's hesitant, but in the second half, I can see why Jordan's going, hey, Mulugeta, you listen. You better go get me a big paycheck because he balled out, man. It's just wild. Absolutely wild. So, all right, let's dive into it, man. Y'all ready? Let's finish up this article if we can, because it's kind of long. I'm going to go full screen, make it a little easier on everyone else. You guys, like I told him, Jacob, cut me off at any point. Okay, if you got something to interject. And Emilio, I know you've been watching tape here lately, going back and watching some of the Jets last year, which I absolutely love that. So here we go. This is where we picked up. They were talking about the overload, right? The overload, what they call loaded front, 3 down linemen to one side and 1 to the other. And we'll just kind of pick up where we left off. It says Saleh likes to toggle between a best on the same side style and isolating Carl Lawson, his best edge rusher, as the player opposite the loaded side of the formation. From there, the fun begins. C.J. Mosley, the Jets' best and most versatile linebacker, will align next to the isolated pass rusher, mugging one of the interior gaps. So let me try to keep that image up there. So when you talk about C.J. Mosley, we've been talking about Quinnen Williams, right? Right, Emilio? Well, we were talking about Quinnen Williams.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yep. I'm sorry. Yeah, as a tackle, correct.
Arguably the best defensive tackle in the game last year. That's something they had that we didn't have, because Kenny did not come nowhere near what Quinnen Williams did on the field last year. And now you're talking about C.J. Mosley being one of their best and most versatile linebackers. We definitely didn't have that last year, at least, to the level they played, right? It says it puts the O-line in a bind. Do they slide away from the Jets' most dangerous rusher or commit resources to the side away from the overload? It's difficult. The Jets having so many high-level pass rushers make it a damn near impossible question. The single mugging stuff, more on that later, makes life easier. But the Jets mashed fools from such overloaded looks without having to walk down a linebacker. Below, the Browns have 6 potential protectors in the box versus an overloaded front. Now, what he's talking about here is obviously the offensive line. You got 5 offensive line, and you got the T there, the T that's a sidecar left. Yep. So you got six potential blockers here. All right. The Browns should have the numbers and resources to block it up. They're only showing a 4-man rush here, right? And you got 6 to block. So it says they opt to slide the left side, fanning man-to-man, while the right side of the line waits for things to unfold before picking up their assignments. The Jets have Jacob Martin isolated and their best to the overloaded side. It's a win pre-snap. They're getting their best pass rushers schemed up one-on-ones, while a rotational rusher occupies 2 sets of eyes and arms through the alignment. At the snap, it's a wrap. It's a great point. When you put someone in that one tech like that, you're occupying 2. And sometimes, like we showed last year, you guys remember, Jacob, I'm sure you remember, Emilio, we would walk Quay up and run that little touch, right? That little sugar touch where he would literally touch the center or the guard and then just drop back. You're taking him out, and still you're taking that offensive lineman out of the blocking scheme, and you're still dropping that defender into coverage, right?
Right. And they have, and I know that we had talked about putting Rashawn over there on the side there. I think that was saying there, they got the rotational guy over there. Even if you did a, drive, push the tackle, duck underneath, and you pull the guard over to you, setting up your 3 best, pass rushers on one-on-ones is unbelievable. I mean, because you're looking to get that anyway. We're trying to push that, and you set it up pre-snap is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I was just going to say real quick to add to that is I think, like you highlighted, you have to have linebackers that you trust, like a C.J. Mosley type, because you look at that wide split there and that large gap, seemingly like Amelia just talked about. It's really cool because I never thought of it that way. Like, you're isolating your pass rushers, even though the front looks like that it should be a liability, but it's not if you have those types of linebackers. And obviously on the next level, the safeties that can come up and fill those, whatever type of play may develop. But that's actually a really cool concept.
Right. Yeah. And the other thing too, is like, you think down in distance as well. In this situation, you're probably looking at 3rd and long where you're begging them to run. If this is a 1st and 10 look, you know what I'm doing. I'm checking the inside zone right, and we're just slamming the ball right there on the right side, right? Maybe even a little pull too. Pull that left guard, and you really got a hat count overload. But again, this is probably a 3rd and long or a 2nd and long situation where they're like, okay, there's no way they're going to be passing here. So
right, and you could call it a NASCAR look just because we have everybody isolated. It doesn't have to be 8 people standing up, moving around, doing all that. And the way they explode off the ball too. Watching that film is unbelievable. I mean, Quinnen pushed the dude, the guard 3 yards back just off the snap on some of them.
Definitely. And again, we're going to talk about NASCAR here in a second, which is cool. It's mentioned in the article. It goes on to say the Jets front brutalized offensive lines all season long from basic overloads without adding a 5th defender into the discussion. So what do they say they like to do? They like to bring 4 pass rushers and drop 7 into coverage, right? That's what Saleh likes to do. All right, it goes on to say, here's a screen grab of another overload. You can see here, I don't think you can see my cursor. Here you go. This overload here, same exact look. You see how they get the three down rushers overloaded on the left side. They're against the Bills here in an empty set, and then you got 1 ISO down here on the bottom. It says it's simple, it's effective. Saleh used the formational quirk to get favorable matchups and pass protection. The flavor can change week to week depending on the opponents and the lineman or linemen he wants to isolate. Then he trusts his all-pro players to do all-pro things. The result, carnage. Where Saleh and the Jets really make their hay, though, is in split fronts. The old-style split front, think of the Broncos during the Super Bowl run. We would rather not as Packer fans, but features 2 wide 9 techniques. And again, what do we mean by wide 9? You can see them right here. When you hear us say wide 9, if we go to the technique chart here one time, bang, right, you see a 5 tech over here, and then you got a 7 tech over top of the Y on the right side, right? A wide 9 is even further out. If there was a second tight end there, he would be on the outside shoulder of that second tight end, essentially. So some people use it very loosely. Like in this case, the image that's on the screen here, number 7 for the Eagles, for the Eagles right here, right? Yeah. Number 7, that's kind of a wide 9. The other down lineman right here is more of a 7 tech, in my opinion. But again, sometimes once they get on the outside shoulder of one tight end, it's very loosely just called wide 9. Right. So it says outside the shoulders of the tackle, and 2-3 techniques outside of the shoulders of the guards with the spaces on either side of the center vacated. So that's what you call a split front. And essentially what it comes down to, and you'll hear me do this on Chalk Talk, and I don't know if anyone else does it. I just like to do it because it gives me a visualization. And if the people that are listening to the podcast on the go understand what we mean by technique, you can get a visualization by listening to the audio going, okay, I know exactly where the defensive linemen are lined up. So I would just call out the techs. I would say, like what the front I would call it would be a 9-3, and I always typically go from left to right on everything from the offense's perspective. So it's a little confusing with this view behind the defense, but I would go 9-3, 4-eye 9 is what I would call that. Now, even though they're in a 4-eye and a 3, it's not an even split. It's still a split set, because what you're trying to do is the goal here is to isolate both wide 9s in a single block on the outside. And you do that by splitting the 2 interior defensive linemen in this nickel 4-2-5. Does that make sense?
Yep, definitely. And looking at it, imagine their rush here, right? Just upfield, just straight upfield from where they're at. That center is backpedaling to air.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, so that's also another instance of drawing up isolated rushes without even having to do anything.
Yep, absolutely. You're winning the hat count battle, or at least matching it 1-for-1, as opposed to allowing them to double team.
Right.
By simply adding in that large split. Now, why don't team, if this is the gospel, this is how you rush the passer, why don't you do this every play? Because not every play is an obvious passing down.
My son started collecting football cards. I had no idea what the heck I was doing, so I went out and bought him one of those binders you put all the cards in and all that kind of stuff. Turns out card collecting has come a long way since when I was a kid, and that's what people did. Now, there is a new way to buy, sell, and trade cards. It's called Arena Club. Whether you're buying, selling, trading, or displaying, Arena Club is the all-in-one trading card platform that you have to sign up for. Over at arenaclub.com/packdaddy. We actually did a whole YouTube video about this. I would encourage you to check it out. It is a fantastic website. You can, as I said, you can buy, trade, sell, but also you can display all of your cards right there on the platform. It gives you all of the grading. They'll even grade your cards. Their grading combines AI as well as human grading to get the most accurate grading of all your cards. And right now, you can get 10% off your first purchase by going to arenaclub.com/packdaddy. That's arenaclub.com/packdaddy for 10% off your first purchase. You ever hear of test driving a phone network? Well, US Cellular is letting you test drive their nationwide 5G for free. Try out US Cellular wherever you have spotty service. Your commute to work, that one spot in your house where your service dips. It's as easy as doing a little beep boop pop boop pop with your phone. That's the buttons. That's the noise they make. Anyways, test drive US Cellular's nationwide 5G coverage for free for 30 days. Just download the Try Us app U.S. Cellular, built for us. Terms apply. Visit uscellular.com/try us. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.
They can run the ball on this front pretty easy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But again, you're in a passing situation. So, yeah, pretty cool. It goes on to say it's a vintage look for letting loose all the stunts, twists, and games that stock NFL playbooks. The center is uncovered. There's more space to dive bomb from inside to outside. The center can at times feel helpless, waiting for all to reveal itself before he shuffles across to help one of the guards on an exchange. Saleh has tagged his split fronts with his beloved single mugger to mess with the offensive protection. When you hear us say mug, A-gap mug, double A mug, we're talking about a backer getting up there and mugging in that, and that really, really makes the offensive line very antsy. It says it's a head-up linebacker over the center, where we talked about that sugar touch drop, the old Mike Vrabel style, or a mug defending, helping to overload one side of the formation. The goal is the same, to force the offensive line to set itself in a 5-0 man-to-man protection, meaning one-on-one, before igniting the dynamite. I love how this is.
And that's what it does, walking that mic up to over the center. You know, they set the protection at 8 seconds on the play clock. We're not changing that, before the snap. The dude can peel out.
Absolutely. It says so much of modern pass rush plans fall under a basic premise. Use the formation and alignment of the front to dictate the protection, typically man-to-man. Remove the guesswork, and then you can attack it. There are 3 ways for a defense to get after an offense: cold, warm, or hot pressures. I'm learning something right now. They are self-explanatory. A cold pressure is an organic pass rush. A 4 or 3-man rush with the defensive line mixing and matching between straight-ahead rushers, stunts, and twists. A warm pressure means to run a 5 across front, be it with 5 down linemen or mugging one or more of the gaps with a linebacker or safety to force the offense to block with man-to-man 5-0 blocking scheme. From there, the defense can create matchup chaos. If the defensive line knows you're blocking man-to-man, their goal is to get the offensive linemen into different levels in their pass sets rather than building one solid wall, which ostensibly, there's another word, Emilio,
that's a good one.
Yeah, forces the line to pick itself and opens clean lanes for the rush to keep looping home. He goes on to say, again, the Jets set the protection for the Bills through their formation and alignment. So you're dictating the protection by how you're aligning here. And here's a great look. We can't play the whole thing. I just want to kind of get it froze frame here. Right here's a good look. There's where we're talking about the mug. So you see the split front. In this case, this looks more of just a straight up 4 tech on the left side here. The other side is definitely a 3 tech. Remember what Lombardi said? Everybody thinks they got a 3 tech, and very few do. That 3 tech is absolutely huge because they're probably going to try to eat up a double team right there. You've got your wide 9 or 7, whatever you want to call it, on this side, and you got another wide 9 on the opposite side. And look at 57. I think that's Mosley. He's mugging. That when he walks up there, you're showing a 5-man front. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You even got a little safety look here in the box too, which he's probably just man up on this tight end. They're probably saying, all right, that's on you, Josh. Let's set a 5-0 protection. So you got the left tackle on this wide 9. You got the right tackle on this wide 9. You got the right guard on this 4 tech. Even though he's over the tackle, it's the guard's responsibility. You got the center has got to be ready and willing to block the Mike linebacker, who's looked like he's firing, although he may just be sugaring. And then you got the left guard who's got to pick up that 3 tech. And you've got the left tackle who's got to be able to bounce way outside and grab that wide 9. Now, that tight end may still chip. Dawson Knox does a lot of that. They like to run a lot of 12 personnel as well. But that's essentially what they mean by 5-0 protection. Does that make sense?
Opposite of the chip there, Clayton. It also, with being the wide 9, kind of sets the receiver off, his normal path. I mean, even if he's down in the wide 9, he could still stand up and throw a hand.
Yep, that's the thing. Yeah, on your way to your pass rush, just smack that tight end right in the mouth.
Yep.
Could you just real quick, just for the terminology's sake, what's the difference? If I know there's not much, but what's the difference when you talk about a linebacker that's either sugaring or mugging?
Okay, so mug and sugar is pretty much the same thing. Sugar is a very blanket term that's used throughout the game of football, meaning you're showing one thing but you're doing another. Okay, it's like you're tricking them, you're sugaring them. Okay, that's what that term means. So when we say mugging, like you can sugar multiple ways. Like you can bring the safety down in the box and sugar a safety blitz, meaning you're going to show a safety blitz and then drop them out. You can actually bring the safety in the blocks and sugar a spur safety, meaning he's going to be a box safety. And you have every intent of dropping him back into cover 4 palms, where he's just going to have a quarter, inside quarter, half deep down the field, right? So sugaring is a term that means you're showing one thing, you're disguising, Jacob. That's basically what it means. With mugging, you're actually on the line of scrimmage and you're showing blitz and you're occupying a blocker by mugging that gap. Now you'll hear double A gap mug. That's something that AJ Hawk said it was one of his favorite plays to run under the Capers era. They would do a double A gap blitz where they would bring both inside linebackers in that 34 front, which they played in their base a lot more when, back in, 2010, 2009, when Dom Capers' defense was really humming. They would bring both those linebackers up there in that the A gap, right? In between the left guard and the center, in between the right guard and the center, they would both be in a gap there and they would actually blitz. So they would cut that was a double A gap blitz, and he called it double mug blitz. So mugging doesn't necessarily mean you're sugaring. Mugging means you're bringing a linebacker up to the line of scrimmage.
Right. And mugging kind of, I would say, stays to defense too, Clayton. You don't talk about mugging really on the offense, and like Matt LaFleur can sugar on offense, right? Matt LaFleur is not mugging.
Yeah, exactly. And I got the term sugaring from Pat Kerwin. Pat Kerwin and Tim Ryan, who he may still be with the 49ers. They had the best show, man. This was back in like 2009, 2010. It was called the Afternoon Blitz. They were the ones they actually had a segment they had a segment they called Chalk Talk. And that's where I got the term Chalk Talk from for our show. Now they're no longer on the air together and they don't do Chalk Talk anymore. But I'm like, man, that made me fall in love with the game of football even more. So they would do just such a good job over the radio, explaining over Sirius NFL radio, explaining exactly what was happening on the field.
Right.
And it was great because these people would call in, hey, moron of a coach, I need to fire him. Can you believe he did this? And Tim Ryan and Pat Kerwin would just cut them apart. And like by the time they got through with the call, it was like you were so embarrassed for the caller because they didn't know what the hell they were talking about. None of us did, right? But you just got to be willing to learn. Anybody can pick it up. But yeah, that's hopefully that answer your question, Jake, the difference between sugar and mugging.
Yeah, totally.
Cool. All right. This is again, the Jets set the protection for the Bills through their formation and alignment. CJ Mosley walks down into the vacated A gap, moving from head up to the right side from the defensive view of the center, turning a split front into say that word for me, Jacob. Is it pseudo? Is that right? Pseudo. All right. Pseudo overload. 3 potential rushers to one side, 2 to the other. Will Mosley drop or blitz? Question mark. I love it. It doesn't really matter. The goal is to force the Bills to check through 5-0 protection, which is man-to-man protection, to get all these down linemen one-on-one rushes across the board. Mosley's movement forces the check at the snap. The Jets have liftoff. Mosley drops. The center goes hunting for work. The Jets are stonewalled on the right side. The Bills and are able to stay on one level. The left guard is able to stay out in front on balance. It's a win for the offensive line. The Jets weren't able to fracture the line and plant it on different levels. No bother. It's one-on-one. Everyone has to win. Bryce Huff comes flying off the edge, beating Spencer Brown out of his stance. He forces Josh Allen to move up in the pocket and try to evade the rush, right into a parade of bodies looping around. The Jets close.
And can I just add to the Bryce Huff thing? One of the fronts when I was watching the Giants game was 4-man front, and Huff was the right DN, and It was a 4-man front. Guess who dropped, Clayton? The defensive tackle on the opposite side of Huff dropped into zone coverage.
Don't you do
Huff,
this
in a 3-man rush, got a sack on Tyrod Taylor.
And see, when it works, nobody complains.
I'm just saying.
When it doesn't work,
Joe Barry.
Why is Preston Smith in coverage? If we had sacked them, they'd go, man, did you see that? They dropped Preston Smith in the coverage.
Now they're going to be saying, why is Devontae Wyatt in coverage? What is Kenny doing out there?
I cannot wait to see TJ Slayton in a hook zone. That's what you kidding
I was
me?
just going to say, people act like that the BJ Raji interception against the Bears was some kind of one-off.
Like, spy.
He loved it because it was a pick six and he shook that big rump, right?
Yes, he did. Like a bowl full of jelly.
If he doesn't pick that ball off, we're going, can you believe Dom Capers dropped BJ Raji? And that was a fire zone blitz is what that was, which is you're blitzing, you're dropping one guy out of the pass rush into coverage and blitzing another guy who should have been in coverage in that same area.
Right.
Much like in this situation right here, it said the center is going to go looking for work. If he sees Raji drop out, that center will fan over and help a guard, and then someone blitzes that vacated space that he left.
And they did that with just a 4-man front and didn't add a blitzer, so it ended up only being a 3-man rush and still get to the quarterback.
Bingo. That's it, man. Well, it says one-way offenses have hit on to counter two deep defensive shells is to shift it into more empty sets with no one lined up in the backfield. Removing a potential 6th or 7th blocker from the protection has made it easier for savvy defenses to manipulate and then attack the protection. The Jets were the second stingiest defense in the league last year versus empty formations. A hot pressure means to bring 5th or 6th or even 7th rusher to the mix. The Jets get to their spicier designs from the same base looks, an overloaded front with the single mugger to the isolated side or the mugger head up between the split front. But they major in cold and warm pressure. So it's very seldom, and this is what we talked about before we started this whole article, it's very seldom that they're blitzing 5, 6, and sometimes even 7 guys. They want to get pressure with a 4-man rush. And again, it's cold, warm, and hot. The majority of what they do is cold, 4-man rush, and warm, where they might add kind of an optional aspect to the blitz there. And you've got green dog blitzes you could throw in here too, which essentially you're playing man coverage on the running back. If he stays in the block, just go after the quarterback.
Right.
Now, you get caught on some of those leap plays if you're not too careful with that. But it says you've heard it before, but defensive football schematically is about adding extra beats to the quarterback's decision-making process so that pressure can come screaming home or the quarterback is forced into a mistake. The Jets don't allow any beats. The pass rush is too ferocious, and there's an extra piece back in coverage. So all these people that are saying, man, we're finally going to blitz. We're going to get exotic blitzes again. If he goes the Saleh, he being Hafley goes the Robert Saleh approach, which we're kind of expecting him to do, it's going to be quite the opposite. You're going to have that mug, that A-gap mug, but you're still going to be dropping 7 into coverage. The goal is to hit home with 4 rushers. Every great defense in the league does that. And the problem with the whole defense with the Packers last year from time to time is we started getting really antsy and trying to bring extra rushers. And we just try to get too darn cute. How many times we show 5 guys on the line of scrimmage with that 34 jam? And here you see the Jets, they're doing just fine stopping the run with a 4-3, a regular 4-3 look. On early downs, they got just a 4-3 overlook. We talked about that earlier in the article. Remember, Emilio?
Yeah.
When you get to passing downs, now you go to the overload.
And I saw that, and that's exactly – I saw the 4-3 over in the film. They had Quincy walk down on I'm pretty sure it was tight end side, and bam, you got your 5-man front. Done.
There you go. You're getting to the same place, just, a different way, essentially. Let's see here. It says, none of this is rocket science, but it's about timing and execution, and Saleh's groups always deliver. The Jets don't run a diverse set of pressure paths. I'm going to say that once again for the crowd that was writing articles talking about how exotic blitzes are going to be ran. The Jets don't run a diverse set of pressure paths because they don't need to. But Saleh continues to find subtle ways to tweak things week to week to create pressure with 4 and to draw up sacks when he tags an extra rusher into the fold. It sounds basic to say a game boils down to whether one team can block the other, but so often that's the reality. And again, if you don't have the dogs up front to get pressure with 4, you've got to generate a pass rush. That's a reality. What makes the Jets defense go is like we always say, when the game's on the line, think player, not play. They have an awesome pass rush group. I feel like we've got an awesome pass rush group. They just got to button up the run defense because we are booty cheeks at tackling on the defensive line.
Yeah.
So, all right, it goes on to say dominating out of cold and warm fronts. Warm looks only amplifies the times a side decides to bring some heat. When the Jets do bring pressure, a counter to the typical four-man rushes, they're more liable to hit. When the single mugger is inserted in the five-man pressure, it sows doubt in the offense's mind that he could come every time. So, again, you're just putting that in their head. It's like I love boxing. I love UFC, man. You work that jab. You keep working that jab. You keep working that jab. And then all of a sudden just a half sidestep and come with a hook. They've got those wrists touching, you know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Outside bone to bone touching, covering for that jab, and then you get freaking ear hole with the hook. That's the same type of approach here. Sports are very universal in that regard. You keep mugging that A gap and you blitz a couple times. That center's now, all right, last time he threw this at me. All right, I got to set the protector. We're good. We're in a 5-0 set. Okay, I'm blocking him. Last time he hit me with a swim move. This time he might do a little push and pull. I'm ready for that. I'm ready for whatever it may be. And all of a sudden he drops into coverage and you ain't blocking a soul. They just won the half count battle. I love it, man. I love football. God. How can you, as one quarterback, an unvaccinated quarterback once said, how can you not be romantic about football? Says the slightest alterations raise the impact level. A coffee house blitz, a mugger bluffing or sugaring, right? Like they're dropping and then blitzing. A read blitz, the mugger reading a lineman before deciding whether to blitz or not. So there's the optional aspect we were talking about. Would you guys have ever imagined that a mugger, an A-gap mugger, they had a defense called where they can decide last second whether they want to blitz or not? Isn't that wild? So, and it all depends on what kind of look they give you. It's a simplistic base with enough variance that it bleeps with any given team's, I think he's saying the old effer bomb there, wasn't he? It bleeps with any given team's protection schemes. Either you set the protection wrong, miss the blocker, or miss the blitzer, or sink into the protection the defense wants you to drop into. And the Jets are liable to bring the mugger late in the count, opening in one look before walking a linebacker down right before the snap, with the same menu available to the defense and less time for the offensive line to communicate or adjust. So right here, you can see on this image, again, we're not going to play the video, but you can see Mosley's actually dropping out. And in this look, what do we got here, Emilio? That's an over, right? Sort of looks like an over. It was an over with a little
Quincy's on the line there.
Yep. It was an over with an A-gap mug. And that A-gap mug is actually dropping into coverage. And can you believe 29's playing that far off?
And now that I'm thinking about it, Clayton, looking at it, who do we trust as a linebacker that can rush? Because they've dropped Quincy down multiple times now to do exactly that.
That's what they said they were drafting, or that's what all the experts said we were drafting Quay for, right?
Right.
So maybe he becomes that guy. Maybe Edgerrin Cooper does. I don't know. McDuffie, to me, seems like the one guy. If you're in a nickel 4-2-5, I can't imagine McDuffie's going to be doing much mugging.
Right.
He's for that kind of that mock, type. So, but yeah, this is it's going to get creative, man. I'm excited about it for sure. It goes on to say, to make it simple, it's charted as a 4-man rush. Let me go see how I can see the image here. It's charted as a 4-man rush, but has all the makings and impacts of a 5-man rush thanks to the pre-snap alignment. Good luck. When the Jets did add a 5th or 6th rusher to the mix last season, it was a genuine change-up. In 2022, their pressure rate climbed to 48.9% when sending pressure. The team only blitzed on 14.9% of their snaps, the lowest mark in the NFL. I'm going to say that one more time. It says their pressure rate climbed to 48.9% when sending pressure. The team only blitzed on 14.9% of their snaps, the lowest mark in the NFL. Again, that was in 2022. They were one of the most effective pass rushing teams in the league, and they blitz, which means 5 or more pass rushers, the least amount in the entire National Football League. But their blitz effectiveness ranks 2nd in the league. It's almost like when you don't go to the well too often, right? It's more effective.
Yep.
It says, and that effectiveness was thanks to the setup of the non-blitz looks, if you follow. Yes, There is a test at the end of this. No, I ain't taking no test. It's tough to deal with. Teams have no idea how to systematically solve such looks because there isn't an innate solution. It comes down to your dudes out executing theirs. Again, players, not plays. Communication, smarts, chemistry, and talent are the only solutions. And sometimes even that is not enough. From there, it becomes a battle of quarterback versus coverage and a 7-man coverage shell at that. So ask any quarterback, man, would you rather – like Aaron Rodgers, you guys remember the year we won the Super Bowl. Aaron Rodgers was unbelievable against the blitz, was he not? And then it was like the next year or two, next 3 years, people started playing 2-man under on him, meaning basically – 2 deep half zones with the safety and everyone else's man coverage across the board in a 4-man rush. And Aaron protects the football, right? He took great pride in that. He didn't want to turn the ball over. That's how teams really shut us down. Now, how do you combat that? You got to run them out of it. We talked about that. Coach McCarthy talked about it. Aaron talked about it. You got to pound the freaking rock. And if you're not willing to stay with pounding the rock, then you're going to be playing right into the defense's hands in that 2-man under for sure. Where some have made the trade-off of an overwhelming down 4 with a flaky secondary, the Jets are loaded across the board. How do you win concept versus coverage? Even as the savviest operator, when Sauce Gardner is eliminating one side of the field, what about when DJ Reed, captain of the quote, why don't we talk about this guy more, all-star team, is playing picture-perfect press and trail coverage on the other side of the field? What about when Michael Carter is beating the ever-loving Poopy? Oh, look at that. Out of everyone across from him in the slot. Few demolish the point of bunch formations as well as Carter. It says, what about when Salah rolls or disguises his coverages? There are no easy answers. You don't need many fingers to count the number of guys you're worried about dicing up a 7-man shell from the pocket and are capable of creating magic when escaping the pocket. Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson. That's it. That's the whole list. Trevor Lawrence, Geno Smith, and Dak Prescott could leap into that profile, but their games are slightly different. The Jets are particularly effective at taking away quick breaking pass concepts last season. They finished second in EPA against 0, 1, and 3-step drops from the quarterback. And what they mean by that is expected points allowed. I think that's the proper definition there. And when you're doing a 0, 1, or 3-step drop, you're looking just a quick hitter, man. You don't even worry about the pass rush. You're just looking for a throwing lane, get the ball out. And the Jets did a great job of taking that first read away because they're being more aggressive up front. Now, I think we will see more press. I think we will see more man. I just don't think it's going to be – some people are thinking we're going to run 80% man. I'm like, bro, there ain't been a team do that in the league in 50 years. What are we talking about? No. So just, again, curb the enthusiasm on some of that stuff because I can't imagine they're going to rewrite the NFL rule book based off of just, what's happened here recently. I just don't see it happening.
Oh, sorry, Jake. Go ahead, Jacob.
It was me. You go ahead, man.
Oh, I did see Sauce walk up on the line, though, and I did see a cat blitz kind of out of him there. So maybe we would, like you were saying, see more up towards the line of scrimmage just for that that option, just to keep them honest. Hey, they've ran it before, 2 games ago, and when we're watching that saturation. So we got to keep that in mind, sort of thing.
Absolutely. And if Sauce was doing it, he wasn't playing in the slot. The only time we seen cat blitzes last year were out of the nickel. Right. So that's getting really creative there for sure. So that's pretty much the majority of the article. I don't want to get too lost in the weeds here. It's talking about culture and things like that. But we hit most of the X's and O's aspect of it. So we'll just kind of end it there. So thoughts, comments, anything. Jacob, what do you think about that, man? I thought it was again, the writer, he kind of got off a couple of times on trying to sound extra smart and this and that. And it's like, man, you know your audience, dude. These are football fans. They're not Ivy League scholars looking to go, oh, that was great vocabulary, right? Although some people would argue about it. I'll just leave that alone. But anyway, what do you think about it, Jake?
No, I mean, like you said, it was a little wordy, and it was one of those that's hard to read well because there's a lot of run-on sentences and weird stuff like that. But that being all said, I thought he painted a good picture and really did a good way of actually describing a lot of the X's and O's the right way. And what really makes me kind of intrigued now is it feels like, and you guys can call me, stupid for it, but it sounds like Jeff Hafley, we finally have more of a guy that has more of a scheme like technique, like a really unique niche, like we do with Matt LaFleur on the offensive side. That guy can scheme so many awesome things. Again, I watched that documentary, and some of the plays, when I watched it now over again, even just a few weeks after we watched certain plays, I start to understand concepts better and the way that some of the blocking is set up and some of the way the play action is. And it's like, that's really unique. Like, it really was kind of special to see some of that stuff. And then to think that if we could copy that and replicate that on the defensive side of the ball, obviously something that we've been wanting for a long time. I'd argue, maybe since the day of the Dom Capers, where we saw some really unique stuff. And it's weird that you think of unique or what's the most tried and true now. It's rushing 4, which is not, again, what you would think about. And it's rushing 4 in a really efficient way. And I think that that's the difference, is anybody can rush 4 and try to drop 7, and hopefully the numbers work out for it. But it's like you said, how do you move the chess pieces in a way so that it's not just cookie cutter, so that it's not so obvious, and that you start putting little things into there. And again, I think we have the skill set from players that maybe are a little bit more hybrid than we've had in the past. Guys like Oladapo, guys like Evan Williams, certain guys, maybe even like Hopper and Cooper, that maybe can play positions differently than we've had in the past. So I'm just really excited to see what it's going to come out. I mean, and I can't remember, I think it was Bates or somebody. We got like 2 weeks until football's back, dude.
Bro,
like, what?
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, we still got a lot to get done too,
Yeah.
It's exciting, man. I love this time of year, dude. We get to August, really, you guys know I'm a big history buff. I love, American history and more specifically, American colonial history and obviously Revolutionary War era and all that. Man, once the 4th of July is over, it's fall for me. I tell Mandy, get the autumn stuff out. Let's go. Let's get some fake leaves laying around the house. What are we doing?
That means you got to crawl up into the attic though, Clayton, and get the next toad out though. That's the issue.
I fight it, and I always get really busy about that time. I got something I got to take. Oh man, something knocking on the work truck. I got to go look at this real quick. Let me just make sure. Mandy's over in the attic cussing me out. But yeah, so. Let's see. Let's go to a couple comments here real quick. Well, first one you had here, Dick in Gulfport says, D alignments like that make offenses change what they want to do is a positive rather than staying so conventional. And that's one thing that I will say about the defense we ran last year. When we were in our nickel set, it was a 4-man rush. You didn't see an overload. I could be wrong, but I can't remember one time where we ran an overload where there was a 4-man rush and it was one guy ISO'd out and then 3, on one side. So, yeah, it's a great point. It's going to be interesting to see if he does approach it that way. Ron Samuel in the chat says, interesting how McDuffie says the Hafley defense in the NFL is much more complex than college. Absolutely. And Coach Haff said that too. Coach Haff was talking about you've got playing defense in college is totally different from the pros, because you've got to account for the quarterback to run more. There's a lot more quarterback design runs. Therefore, you play with more spur. And when I say spur, there's very few, if any, people in the NFL use that term spur, because it is a very, very, very college-heavy terminology. When you're talking about the safety playing in the box, they refer to that as spur because it's so common that they have to put the safety in the box, because there's so many quarterbacks that like to run the zone read, the read option, the RPRs and everything. And that's that you're kind of taught to attack the mesh point on those read options. In the NFL, it's a little bit different because they'll literally pull that thing out of the belly and, hit a slant, hit a lookie, and they're off to the races. The speed is just so much more in the NFL. Let's see. Dick Palinick, hope I'm saying that right, says, WTF, I couldn't find PTA on YouTube or on my phone or TV until now. Anyone else have this issue tonight?
Commie tube.
Bro,
don't get Jacob started.
Dick, you would be so surprised at how many people reached out to me and was like, bro, I'm unsubbed to your channel. I didn't unsub your channel.
Yeah.
Like, there's weird stuff that takes place. But yeah, it's crazy too, because when we went off YouTube and just went strictly Rumble, we have more live viewers on Rumble than we have in YouTube in forever. And you're sitting there going, how is that? People jumped over to the platform for us and found us, and then we're back on YouTube. We don't have as many viewers. It's because they're not paying attention to Rumble now, and all of a sudden, people can't find us on their feed. It's just weird. Right? So, anyway, let's don't go down that, like you said, Emilio. Don't go down that road with Jacob over. Look at Jacob. He's grown so much.
He's getting warm.
Yeah,
Keeping it together.
Omer says, can't wait to see McKinney back there. A man makes tackles after watching Savage miss so many. McKinney is going to be Xavier McKinney is going to be absolutely huge for this team.
He's going to be a chess piece this year.
I'm telling you, man. He's going to be a leader. I hope he's wearing the green dot. Let those linebackers get freed up. He's got experience doing it.
And maybe it's McKinney that's going to be coming down more often, Clay. And maybe we put the young safety in the back. Dude, go back there and just cover. You did that in college. You got it. No problem. Like, maybe we need McKinney, the one that's coming up and down all the time.
Imagine if Javon Bullard somehow, some way wins some reps, wins the right to play some slot defender, right? So now you've got someone who is molded to be a safety playing the slot, and you got McKinney. Let's say McKinney's playing spur, and Bullard is showing press, and you decide to fire McKinney, and all of a sudden Bull drops back into coverage, and he's used to that. He's a safety. He's built like a safety. He's built to play safety, although he played slot 2 years ago.
That would open up Hafley for he could make brand new recipes with that option.
And you could even do it in a way where you've got, like you said, you talked about a D tackle dropping into coverage. You have them drop into a short curl or a short hook zone, right? Have Bull drop completely out. You're still only rushing 4, therefore you've got 7 in coverage. That's exactly what solid does. You're getting to the same ending point. You're taking a different path. Right. And that's the NFL, really. It's like all these passing concepts and route combinations, as I'm sure Coach Lynn could attest to. You're attacking space. That's all football is. You're attacking and defending space. Mm-hmm. And you can get there multiple different ways. Like, if you're going to run a dagger concept, which is the number 2 on a 9 and the number 1 on a dig, right? What you're doing is you're clearing the safety out for the dig. And if the safety creeps down on the dig, then you're going to take a shot to the dagger. But if you all of a sudden throw a 3-by set in, meaning you've got a trip set or a tray set, and especially with someone like Musgrave who's got a lot of speed and just as quick as some receivers, you put that 3-by set in there. Guess what you can do now? You can throw the number 3 on the streak on the 9 route, right? And you can give the number 2 on a crosser, and then you can give the number 1 on a dig. Well, guess what you've got? You've got dagger and slot cross, the 2 concepts that Matt LaFleur loves to run the most. To the best of my knowledge, with me charting last year, those were the 2 concepts he ran the most. If you go to a 3-by set and you do exactly what I said, the 1 on a dig, the 2 on a crosser, the 3 on a streak or a 9 a fly, what you've got is dagger and slot cross on the field at the same time. And take your pick on the other side. Send them on a go, or what else you could do is if you want to go pick a side, you could have that isolated wide receiver on the opposite side, which would be the boundary X or just the X, depending on the side of the field. Let him work an out route. And Love's got that. Bam, ball snap. If they're in a 2-man under shell, maybe just look to the inside, try to get that guy to play in just a touch and hammer the out route. Like, there's just a number of different things you can do with the 3-by sets, trip sets, tray sets, bunch sets. I would not want to be a defensive coordinator, bro, because they're especially those bunch sets, because we've seen it. How many times we see Rasul throw his hands up because people are so mixed up, man. Bunch nasty X's. I used to hate the close splits, the nasty splits. Jacob's like, I've always loved the nasty splits, but I used to hate it, and now I get it, because it's like you're kind of attacking from the inside out as opposed to spreading everything out like McCarthy did. So I don't know. Let's see. M. Smitty says reducing the broken tackles from the D line would go a long way to improving things. Completely agree, man. That was the biggest problem. Fred McFarley says, Rumble, this is the way. And Ben Holden says, so much more speed with second-year guys and rooks. Brooks, Cooper, Bullard, and McKinney. I'm telling you, man, every time I hear Bullard's name and I think about what we've seen at Georgia, and Jacob, kind of found him before any of us did, when I see him, I think he's going to be the Jaden Reed of our defense this year.
Yeah.
What Jaden Reed did for the offense last year, I feel like Bullard can do that for the defense, if that makes sense. So, But all right, we're at the 56-minute mark. Let's wrap this big bear up. Jacob, you got anything else, man? Anything you want to hit on? Any comments or any thoughts that got sparked there?
You know what? I actually was going to bring up something that I sent you here. I can't remember. Yeah, here it is. It just was interesting talking about how Christian Watson has gotten so much grief for not being able to stay healthy. Romeo Dobbs has gotten, not a lot of praise. People just saw that said that he's more of like a slower possession receiver kind of thing. Man, I'm telling you, when I went and like I said, I spent an hour and a half, watched that whole documentary, and they really did highlight a lot of the game highlights and that kind of stuff. And both of those guys to me were just way better than I remember. I mean, they just looked like actual really game-changing receivers in certain situations. And I actually found a graphic that you guys said that I sent it to you in the group chat. It was in the 2022 draft class, the most receiving touchdowns of that class are number 1, Christian Watson with 12, number 2, Romeo Dobbs with 11, number 3, tied for second is Jahan Dotson with 11, and George Pickens is behind that with 9. So it's like, to think that if actually Watson is going to be really healthy, which we have reason to believe that this year he really did. He found the issue. He corrected the issue. If Dobbs takes a step with more comfort with Love, if Love takes a step with more comfort with the receivers, and you pepper in the fact we haven't mentioned Jaden Reed, Malik Heath, even guys like DeBose and Bo freaking Melton. I mean, again, I don't want to keep hyping this up, but we could be in store for an unbelievable offensive season. And that's just insane. And to add in the fact now that we have this new defensive wrinkle that I'm just going to go ahead and say, like, I don't even trust Hafley. I love the guy. I want to trust him, but we've been burned before. So I'm going to just let it play out. But for whatever reason, I feel like this is different. I really do this year. I know I sound like a Bears fan, but I think that the defense is going to crack, because even if the defense can be top 15, we can see how good the offense is. That's all we need. Just give us the ball back a couple times a game. That's all we need.
Jacob said, but I can change him, Emilio.
I can change him.
No, I hear it. Jacob does sound. I was spinning through on Facebook, Jacob. I got one popped up. Bears ranked their offense A, Lions A, Packers B+, and the Vikings A. I'm like, all right, you know what?
Keep it going. I love it, dude. Where'd you see it, on Comedy Central?
Yeah, I think.
I love it, man. Seriously, and that's the thing too, though. I mean, the league is very cyclical. It's very copycat. I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, it's a slam dunk. The Packers are going to be great. We're going to win 13, 14 games. But boy, it's hard to build an argument against that.
Yes. Listen to this. Last year, man. One comment on there. Dude quotes, Bears at 5,846 yards, Lions at 4,283 yards, Vikings at 4,138 yards, and the Packers at 3,401 yards. That's total offensive yards.
Oh my gosh, man. That's
like
stupid.
What are we doing? What? And dude had a whole paragraph lined out like that. Why are we spending time on this?
It's crazy, man. Wow. Crazy. I don't know, dude. It can't get here quick enough, but like Jacob said, it's right around the corner. I'm excited about it for sure.
It is crazy.
Yeah. So the rookies report in 8 days, right? And then I think it's the next week is when obviously everyone reports, and we're off and running, boys. We're going to dive right into training camp coverage. We'll be recapping everything we learned from training camp practice from all the guys and gals that are there reporting on it. It'll be a lot of fun. And like I said, here in the next week, we've got to get the rest of those games in, which obviously we'll go live on YouTube. Everyone will know we're live. We'll hit on a little bit of news. And then before we jump into the tape, because we want to respect and honor, the rules here at YouTube, although we don't know exactly what they are. We would just say, okay, we're going to continue the stream on X and on Rumble and kind of do the breakdowns. So that's how we'll roll there. But, all right, cool. You got anything else, Emilio?
Nothing.
All right, man. I know Jacob's over here. Jacob's trying to get me to go 2 hours. He's marking all kinds of comments, but we got to get off here, man. But I really appreciate everybody in the chat, man. You guys and gals were awesome, man. It was lit all night long. I apologize that we couldn't get to more of them, but we wanted to get through that article. Hopefully everybody kind of came away. I know I did, with a little better understanding of, okay, here's kind of what Saleh was looking to do going into the 2023 season. And obviously last year they kind of held up pretty well. And I think the biggest takeaway for me, again, I said it 1,000 times while we were reading the article, players, not plays. You can draw up the prettiest scheme ever, but if you can't win those one-on-one matchups, you scheme to gain one-on-one matchups. If the players can't win the one-on-one matchups, as my old baseball coach Roger Morris used to say, you're just pissing in the wind, bub. That's what he'd say. So it's yeah. Moment of silence there for great advice. Best baseball coach I ever had, though. God, man, what memories. I'm telling you, they just came flooding. That dude is awesome. All right, we're out, guys. Appreciate y'all. We will see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Central, if everything goes as planned. Tomorrow might be the night we break down the tape, so we may do that. We may jump right back in because I think we haven't watched the Bears yet, right? Last game of the season. So we got the Bears, Cowboys, Niners. Those are the only three we got left. So even the Niners game is going to be fun. It is because they went toe-to-toe with them. So, all right, appreciate everybody hanging out with us. For those of you listening on the pod, thank you for making us a part of your day. We'll see y'all tomorrow night. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. Let's hit this real quick.
Musgrave stayed on his feet.
Go, go.